Hello again, Gooners! Yes, it's the Loose Cannon, and the Loose Cannon is back, because that's me. Sounding a little bit worse for wear, you might say. I haven't done a lot of wearing of stuff because it's pretty hot out here, although air conditioning's on, and I'm very near a fridge, so that's got to be a bonus, right? Depending on what's in the fridge, I haven't actually looked, but I've got a good idea what's there. There's a sniffing dog around me that sneezes occasionally, so if you hear a funny noise, maybe that's where I got this, whatever I've got from. Never know. And people have called me a four-legged friend before. Even though I've only got two legs for now. But yeah, I'm stroking the dog as I speak to you. It's very relaxing, let me tell you. It's also been relaxing watching Arsenal beating Manchester City, of course. And what can I say about that other than Callum Chambers' brilliant performance from him? It's a little bit worrying thinking ahead for start of the season though, with our three Germans out of action for a while, because they've only just gone back into training. I've been looking at all the transfer news. Obviously, some transfer news coming up, and a couple of sneezes as well. You might have heard some in the background. You're bound to hear more later. But anyway, we'll start off with the top stories that I'm seeing on the internet at the moment. This story is on HITC. Redknapp, forget Ozil, forget Sanchez, forget Ramsey. A lot of forgetting going on. This is Arsenal's key man. Very cryptic headline. These cryptic headlines always do the business, don't they? Well, not necessarily, but this one did. The headline, you could have thought it was Harry Redknapp, but no, it was his son Jamie, who I do have a fair bit of respect for with his opinions. I know not everyone does because he's ex-Spurs, but so what? He talks a lot of sense, Jamie, as his dad does. And obviously his dad was a gooner. There's no getting away from that. And I recommend read his book, by the way. I'm not getting any sort of percentage of his sales, but I'm telling you, it's a good book, really good book. Harry Redknapp's autobiography. Anyway, on HITC, which is here is the city, I believe. Jamie Redknapp's going on about Giroud and how he is in fact the key to our season. And you know what? I think he might be right, because I've been saying all along that Giroud is an essential part, and we need him to score over 20 goals in the Premier League, and I think he may well do it this time. That's my opinion, because I think he's going to get better and better. He's a big striker, and he can take all the hustle and bustle of the Premier League, and he certainly can put it about as well physically. So he's never daunted by the prospect of facing a big centre-half, is he? So he's a proper centre-forward, which is why I think he's going to take a long time to be at his very best. But maybe this season we'll start seeing how good he really is. I know I was pretty impressed with him last season. So I've never really understood why people have booed him at times. Never got it. Never understood it one bit. And when we put up with the likes of Rosicky, who a lot of people say good little player, he's not even that small, but that's what they say, and I have to listen to that. But no one should have a go about Giroud in front of me, because I'm not very keen on that. But anyway, it's all about opinions, as they say. So that was number one story, believe it or not. So not to do with transfers. Theo Walcott and David Ospina, not Ospina. I'll call him Ospina because he sounds like a cricketer. But David Ospina left out of the Champions League squad. You don't have to make too much of that. Make of it what you will, is what I normally say. But plenty of youngsters in that squad. I mean, it's a huge squad. If I went down the list, I'll be here till next Tuesday, just giving you the list of players in the squad. So it's more stunning to be left out. And the other player left out is Ryo Miyaichi, who of course is injured. Kel Sapri. Diaby's in it, even though he is injured, because you never know when he might return from his injuries. Notice I said the plural. And then there was this story, which is number 3. I should check it as I speak to you, because it comes from a website based in Nigeria. It's called A Talks. It's a little bit ruder than that. I'm not quite sure how it gets in these sort of news bulletins, but there you go. It says that we are ready to cash in on Lucas Podolski. There's also talk about Campbell leaving. I'm not sure whether or not it's going to happen. Podolski, though, it wouldn't really surprise me, although he was very welcoming, wasn't he, to Khedira, and that sort of suggests that he's of a mind to stay with us. But is he much use? Because he's either injured. Yeah, he's useful from the bench, but he can't seem to play an entire 90 minutes. So I'm not too sure. As much as I like Podolski, I'm not too sure we should keep him if a good bid comes in. Perhaps we should in fact let him go. But talk of Galatasaray being interested in both Campbell and Podolski. So it looks like they could be leaving, and obviously Podolski's quite a big wage earner, so gives us plenty of room for manoeuvre on the transfer front if we want to bring somebody in to replace him. This story, I've really been clicking on it like crazy, trying to find out what's going on, and I can't find out anything. It's on soccerx.com. It says we're going to get a new signing in before the Palace game, which is obviously going back to what I said earlier on about my initial worries about our team. As good as it is, we are lacking in central defence now that we've let Thomas Vermaelen go. I think it was a good move by the club to let Vermaelen leave for £15 million, because £15 million for a player that's just a bit part player is good money in anyone's language. So I'm happy with that. The unfortunate thing is now we either have to rely on Miguel, who's not looking at his most confident, I have to say, even though I rate Miguel. I'm not sure he's going to make it at Arsenal, mainly because I just get the feeling he thinks that we don't believe in him. I personally do, but does the manager? He hasn't had a lot of opportunities. I've got to say Miguel has to be better than Senderos. Whether he's better than Giroud, I wouldn't like to say. But anyway, better than Senderos. So I'd go with Miguel and give him a chance. He might really show what he can do, given a chance. Even Giroud, obviously, I always said Johan Giroud wasn't a bad centre back. He had some good games in an Arsenal shirt, and we managed to win a lot of games. And it was at the start of the season, and he went to pieces thereafter when he started getting moved around. So yeah, give Miguel a try, but I don't think that's going to happen. I see what's going to happen. More likely, we're going to end up with Monreal playing at centre back. And that might not be as good as putting Miguel in my opinion. And I like Monreal, but I like him in his position, not in an alien position. So anyway, no real news on that, because every time I click on the story, it's inaccessible. German captain on his way to Arsenal. That's a story I really like a lot. And the reason being because, of course, there are two German captains that are potential Arsenal players of the future. There's also Kostas Manolas. This is in highburyhouse.com, by the way. This 23-year-old 6'1" Greek international, or Greece international, is currently playing for Olympiacos. We obviously have a situation with Olympiacos where it's a bit of give and take. It's not just one-way traffic, is it? They had Joel Campbell, so we can have Kostas Manolas, so the story goes. He's under contract till 2017. Apparently there was talk that he was going to move to Everton, but it didn't happen. But now we need a centre back. He's 23, he's 6'1", so why not? And the Greek team, the Greece international team, really good defensively. No one can deny it. We did have what was his name? The Greek centre back before. I really liked him a lot, and he disappeared, completely disappeared. So we'll see what happens with Manolas. I'm not convinced that deal's going to happen, by the way. And if it does, will Wenger just throw him straight into the deep end? Would he rather play Per Mertesacker, who may not be fully fit, but still Mertesacker doesn't rely on his fitness. He certainly doesn't rely on his pace, because he hasn't got any. He's got fantastic positional sense. I've got a funny feeling we might see Mertesacker on at the weekend against Palace. Anyway, I would love it if we signed Benedikt Howedes. He's been mentioned a lot by a number of websites, including my own, the Loose Cannon. Luiz Gustavo has also been mentioned. It's not one of my favourite ideas, even though we've been heavily linked with him in the past. I don't think that's the answer. Obviously, having seen Brazil in the World Cup, I wouldn't be looking to sign Brazilian defenders. German defenders, whole different ballgame. So Howedes would be excellent. He's not the quickest, but he's versatile, can play left back, defensive midfield, or centre back. He's under contract till 2017. A bit similar, I mean not a bit similar, the same as Manolas of Olympiacos, but Howedes, he's not a very quick player, as I said, but good positional sense. So effectively we'll have a versatile Mertesacker in the team, but without his extraordinary height. So I'd be really, really pleased if we get Howedes in. He was one of the shining lights of the World Cup for me, not just because Germany won it. From the first match I noticed What a good player this guy was. Gustavo, Luiz Gustavo, as I said, not my cup of tea really. William Cavalho, there's been a lot of talk about him. Paul Mariner, the former Arsenal player, said that we should sign William Cavalho, but he's a midfielder. He's a defensive midfielder. It looks like we wouldn't mind bringing a player in that's versatile enough to play in well, centre-back position and defensive midfield, and preferably in a right or left-back position as well. So that really means Howedes is the man. He really fits. He really ticks every single box. Then there's other stories coming through about a young superstar at Charlton Athletic, and we could be interested in him as well as a load of other clubs. But I really think this is just paper talk or even website talk. Bob Peters, the new Charlton Athletic manager, a former Millwall player, he's been saying that he's got a great player, even though he's only played his first game for Charlton, by the name of Joe Gomez. He's been playing for the England under-17s, and already we, Chelsea, Everton and Newcastle, are apparently interested in this 17-year-old. So that's also quite a big story at the moment. I don't put a lot of faith in that story. Mats Hummels, of course, of Borussia Dortmund, has been heavily linked with us, and again, I mean, it's one of those stories. I'd love it to be true, but in reality, I think there's little truth in it, especially as Hummels has just been made captain of his team. I really, unfortunately, can't see that one happening at all. So yeah, let me see if I can find any other news before I head off. Are we title contenders? That's a question that's been asked by ESPN FC. The answer to that is, in short, yes. After the way we demolished Manchester City, I know it was just a glorified friendly, I have to start saying I have some belief. This was interesting. How this got in the Arsenal section, I will never know. Moscow scientist claims turning point in Ebola battle. Now, unless Ebola is an African striker, this should not be in the Arsenal sports section, but there you go, that's the Telegraph for you. And then it's followed by 5 fascinating things to do in Waterford. Now, Waterford is, I think we might have brought some player in from Waterford at some point, but where is the connection to Arsenal there? But anyway, the Telegraph, somehow they've got their keywords right, so they're now getting their news feed into the Arsenal section, which is interesting. This actually is interesting. Walcott confirms Arsenal's new gem has smashed his sprint record. Now, who do you think that gem is? I'll give you count of 3, and then you're going to tell me who is that gem who's beaten his sprint record. 1, 2, and 3. Right, I will tell you the answer in just a moment. First of all, I can tell you who it isn't. It isn't Sanchez. I thought it was, but no, it's my main man, that right back, the Spanish right back. What's his name? What is his name again? I've forgotten it suddenly. Bellerin or something like that. Anyway, I've seen him play enough times. I should never forget his name. Bellerin, of course. Bellerin is one of those players that I really rate highly, and I want to give you the details on this because, as you know, Hector Bellerin is a player I've been following, watched him a few times for the youth team, and I just thought, this guy's got everything. But I didn't think he's that quick. Thought he's quick, but not quicker than Theo. Apparently, Bellerin has broken the club's 40-metre sprint record, which was originally held by Theo. The 19-year-old clocked the 40-metre sprint in a sensational time, and the previous record, he beat it by 4.42 seconds was the previous record, and Thierry Henry only managed it in 4.8 seconds. So somehow or other, he's actually beaten Theo's record. So you've got to say that Bellerin, he's certainly one for the future. So I have high hopes going into this season. Got to say, even though we've lost Vermaelen, a lot of people said that what a good deal that is. Not only because we've got £15 million in for a player that in the last year of his contract, not far from 30 years of age, and now injured again apparently, so won't be able to play for Barcelona. So no real loss there, you might say. And £15 million in the bank can't be sniffed at, can it? So the Catalan headlines in Spain, they're saying there's a curse of the Arsenal captains, because when they come in, they either fail to impress, like Fabregas wasn't that impressive apparently for Barcelona. Either that, or they're always injured. So perhaps you could say Barcelona fans not particularly looking forward to Vermaelen's arrival, and he's been carrying a bit of a hamstring injury, so it makes it all the better that we managed to get rid of him. No, nothing against Vermaelen. Of course, he's been a really good servant to Arsenal, and I appreciate all of his attitude. Really, he's had a really excellent attitude, I feel. A little bit more on the Manolas story. That was one of the first stories I was talking to you about. Manolas apparently has been left out of the Olympiacos squad. They've got a pre-season game going on against Athletic Bilbao, and he's been left out apparently. So read into that what you will. Apparently it's because he's negotiating his move to Arsenal. So we certainly hope there's a lot of truth in some of those stories. I'll just see very quickly if I can find another one just before I let you go. Okay, what about Daniel Agger? Daniel Agger, that's an interesting one because, of course, we've been heavily linked with him. Will Liverpool let him join us? My answer to that would be an indefatigable, I can't even say it, so I won't bother. It would be one of those words that sounds very similar to that. It would certainly be no. I don't think Liverpool will let him join us. Rather like the way we behaved with Vermaelen, I think we'll let him. I mean, Liverpool will let him go to a club from abroad. That club being Napoli, apparently they're interested. Whether they'll get £10 million for him is another story. I'm not even convinced we're interested in Agger. Actually, what a pun that is. But anyway. He's certainly on the way out, but whether it's to us remains to be seen. So we've obviously made moves to try and bring in reinforcements in the back line from Manchester United, but again, same old story. They're not going to let one of their, even mediocre players join one of their rivals. That's not how most teams operate. Bit more on Khedira. He's going nowhere. No surprises there, apart from in the last year of his contract. The last I'm hearing on Sami Khedira is Jose Mourinho is saying, just wait a year, Sammy, and then come to Chelsea. We could do that as well, of course. And it wouldn't altogether surprise me if we do, in fact, get him. But if we do get him, it won't be till next year. I like this in Arsenal News Review. It's not a transfer story, but I like it anyway. Sanchez is like Reyes with brains. I like it because I don't like it, if you know what I mean. It's because I think it's nonsense. I do actually like, for my sins, I like Arsenal News Review because it's been around a long time, and sometimes the news in it isn't always news, obviously, but it's interesting. I just find it quite interesting, and the way it's written is a bit bizarre, but again, it sort of appeals to me in a strange way. I must be the only person who likes it that I know. But I do. I've even bought Miles Palmer's book for my sins. You see what I mean? I do a lot of sinning. So yeah, Sanchez is like Reyes with brains, with Bergkamp vision. You gotta love the way that's put together. Apparently, it comes from a reader, but it actually sounds like Miles Palmer wrote that himself to me, because it's written it exactly in the same style that Miles Palmer writes, which is distinctive. So you've got to give him credit for that. So he's also saying that Arteta will not be sold now that he's captain, and we're not even going to get Khedira, as I was already mentioning. But anyway, I don't really see Sanchez as Reyes with brains. I don't make it. I'd see him as, if I had to compare him to Reyes, I'd say he's Reyes with brawn, because he's tough. Reyes wasn't anywhere near as tough as Sanchez. So that's the big difference for me between the two. Sanchez probably just as quick as Reyes. Reyes with lightning. I would love to have found out exactly what he recorded on a 40 meter dash or sprint. I suspect he'd been right up there, pretty close to Walcott. Walcott obviously quickest, and strangely enough, I think Rio Miyaichi, before he started getting injured, he was second fastest at Arsenal. So I wonder where he's going to be when he finally comes out of his rehabilitation, if that ever happens. Sorry to say, it seems like he's just going to spend his whole entire career in sickbay. Another story I need to bring to your attention is Tiote of Newcastle. Apparently, Newcastle are ready to sell him if we want to bring him in. I don't think we will because he's a defensive midfielder. We could do with one, but is he really the quality we're looking for? I think he's a solid player. I won't be upset to see him arrive, but is he much better than some of the players we've had in the past? Is he much better than Emmanuel Frimpong, for instance, who for one reason or another didn't make it at the club? I think Frimpong had a lot to offer, but perhaps the club didn't like the fact that he's on social media too much, on Twitter a lot, and obviously his disciplinary record is a little. Let's say, I wouldn't say it's poor, but he does tend to get red cards rather too easily. So that's probably the reason why I would say why Frimpong's no longer an Arsenal player. Last I looked, he wasn't with any club. Hopefully that's changed now. But that's the only thing that could put you off Frimpong, and the fact that he's injury prone as well. So it's quite a few things actually. But he's got talent and he's gritty and he's determined. So I would never like to rule him out. But obviously he's not an Arsenal player, so I shouldn't keep talking about him, should I? So what else am I looking for? Not much else to report, it seems. I don't know why I've got this story up. I thought it was interesting. The Financial Express. Arsenal need Premier League title desperately. Comes from Reuters in London, so you've got to listen to it. But really, it's a nothing story. So I'm not even sure why I'm even mentioning it to you. See what I mean? I've still got this whatever it is that's making me struggle to pronounce anything, even obvious words I'm struggling with. So on that note, I think I'll leave you until the next time. It's up the Gooners and away!